You're all perfect. So your fur knowledge will be impeccable. So I'm going to take you back to the mid-1800s. So what we like to do here is we like to show you guys some furs, and you have to try to guess what they are. Some of them are a little bit difficult, so I will walk you through these furs. Sweet. So I will start you off with this big guy right here. Do you have any ideas what this guy could possibly be? Tiger? A wolf? He's more of a wolf. There you go, a wolf. So he is a timber wolf. As you can see,
it's a big one.
Quite large.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about this guy is they get even bigger than this. This is actually a smaller timber wolf. As you know, wolves, they typically travel in packs, so they'd be kind of a hassle to get. And as you can see over here, what I have is a single firing musket. So let's say I wanted to go get a wolf. Well, let's say I get my wolf. Well, the problem is there's 12 more after I get this the one, and I only have a single firing musket, right? So in a rare instance, we did get a wolf. What we could do with them is we can put him in our parkas or make coats out of him, because he has very unique fur. It's rather quite thick, rather quite coarse. The Europeans did not want this guy because they much prefer, let's say, a fox or something else like that. We use him for ourselves. We can make hats out of him and all that fun stuff. And then I got this little guy. He's more like the wolf's little brother.
Fox?
Coyote. So most people see him as a pest, which, to be honest with you, he is a pest. And as you can look at his fur, it seems to be rather quite soft, which it is. It would seem to be a little bit more manly for the men to wear the coyote instead of the fox. I myself, I do prefer the fox because it's rather quite softer. And what do you think we could do with a coyote? You have any guesses for me? No guesses? Excellent. So what we could do with a coyote, we can make a coat out of him. We could even make hats out of it. So this guy right here, as you can see, he's rather quite stylish.
That's nice.
So cute.
He's extremely warm. So let's go back in the day. What we could do with him is, as you can see, wear him on our heads. So all those fancy dances you just watched, Métis people loved to show off. You see the beadwork over there. They love to put it on their jackets, on their coats, and imagine going to a dance wearing this. Rather quite extravagant, rather quite beautiful, and it keeps you nice and toasty. So very vibrant. And I got this guy. Do you have any guesses what he could possibly be? He's a large cat. Tends to dwell a little bit more up north. Quite rare to see. Pardon me? Excellent guess. He is a lynx. So how you can tell he's a lynx, if you look at his pointy little ears, he has these tufts. And he's got these massive paws. Do you have any idea as to why he could possibly have such massive paws?
For climbing.
For climbing, not a bad guess. So yes, he could use them for climbing, but the most important thing of all was he could use them for treading on the snow. They're kind of like natural snowshoes. And I myself, this is probably one of the softest furs we have. If we could probably find more of this guy, he most likely would have been more popular than the fox itself. And speaking of the fox, we have him right here. What do you think we could do with a fox?
A scarf.
A scarf? Yes, absolutely. So as you know, this guy became extremely popular up in Europe, with the ladies especially, because of his scarf. The collars is what we call them. We have one right here, and as you can see, not only would it warm again, it's rather quite extravagant. So most people want to
that's nice.
They wanted to have the hat, the collar, and the coat. And as you can imagine, you need a couple of boxes for that, right? And as you can see, he'd keep you nice and toasty, rather quite warm. So he became extremely popular up in Europe. Then I got this guy right here. Do you have any guesses as to what he could possibly be? He's rather quite large.
Mama's not a beaver.
He's not quite a beaver himself. It's a genetic mutation, so he comes from a fox. He is a fox. He's called the silver fox.
Silver fox.
White, 1 in every 10 to 1 in every 20. You might get lucky enough to see one of these guys. So I would say you'd be lucky if you even get to see one. So let's say you have a red fox. You got this guy, the silver fox, and they meet each other, which is even more rare, and they have pups. You'll come up with this guy right here. This guy is called a cross fox. So where he gets his name, obviously he's crossed between the two coats of the fox. He also, in rare circumstances such as this guy, he'll also have a line go down his back and across his shoulders. And typically they can be any color really. They can be all black, they can have a little bit of silver in them as well. Let's see, I've shown you guys 3 different kinds of foxes. I've shown you the red fox, which you can find a lot of them. They're rather quite popular around here. Or the silver fox, which is rather quite rare to find, or the cross fox, which is very inconsistent in colors. Out of those 3 foxes, which one do you think was the most popular up in Europe back in the day?
The red fox.
the red fox. So yes, absolutely, it was the red fox. And the reasons as to why it was red fox, back in the day, fashion was uniform. Everybody wanted to wear the same things. As of today, as you can see, fashion trends have changed, and everybody probably want to wear the silver fox because of how rare it is. Then I got this guy. So this guy's rather quite rare. He tends to avoid us. And we definitely try to avoid him too. He's rather quite mean, very dangerous. Do you have any guesses what he could possibly be?
Wolverine.
Wolverine. This is the Wolverine.
There you go.
Very, very dangerous, very vicious. He's probably
Hugh Jackman.
one of the most vicious one we have on this table. So fun fact about the Wolverine, by himself, and this is rather quite small for a Wolverine. This one this size could take down a full-grown moose by himself. And I'm sure you guys have seen a full-grown moose. It is taller than I am on his back end. They are massive animals. He'd much rather want to fight that black bear than fight this Wolverine. And I've also been told, because of how vicious and resilient they are, if a bear or a wolf has a kill, he shows up, they will leave. They do not want him.
Really?
So what we can do with him, we also put him in the lines of our parkas because he has very unique fur. It does not freeze over, so we love to have this guy. Then I got this guy. Any ideas what he could possibly be? Not quite a porcupine. So he became a luxurious item up in Europe. We didn't really have much use for ourselves up here. So this guy is the badger. So I see you have your
Badger?
notebook over there. What you can do is you flip it to the fur page. All the furs you see today, just write a little M that proves you came and visited the Métis. We used to have numbers, but we don't have numbers anymore.
No.
So what we could do with him, as you can see, his fur, he's rather quite unique. He's very thick and coarse underneath, but also nice and fine on the top. So what we do with those fine furs, we take them off and make them into fine brushes. So when we sit up here, that's where the badger brush came from. The badger brush was probably the softest and most luxurious brush we could get back in the day. Then I got everyone's favorite, my personal favorite as well. Everyone loves this guy.
Skunk.
Pepe Le Pew.
This is Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
So let's say you get a skunk.
I thought it's a skunk.
Look at a skunk. Because as you all know, they're rather quite stinky. And back in the day, let's say you trapped a skunk, you can't get that stink out as we can today. So what we could do with him is we can use him for really anything. We can make coats and gloves, or we can make hats. And you can imagine back in the day, if you're not able to clean your skunk hat, how stinky it would be. You'd be walking around with this thing on your head, and it would smell you, and you'd be like, P.U. Wow, that's stinky. But here's the thing though. Keeps you nice and warm, so back in the day, I'm sure that wasn't a problem as to how it smelled, because everyone back in the day was probably rather quite smelly anyway. And then I got this little guy right here. Do you have any ideas what he could possibly be? He's a water dweller. He has rather nice waterproof fur. Any guesses? So he's not quite a beaver. Let's think of the beaver's cousin. This guy is an otter. So he has very unique fur. He has waterproof properties. As you can see, he has a nice shine to him because of the grease buildup on his fur. What we can do with him is we can put him on our gloves and on our boots because we would not want to get wet back in the day, especially with the wintertime. You would freeze probably to death. And I've also been told before the fur chill was a thing, they used to make coats out of him, the indigenous people here, because of how warm he is. He's probably one of the most warm furs we have on this table. And that's rather quite surprising because if you look at him, you're like, he doesn't look that warm. No, he is extremely warm. Then I got this little guy right here. Do you have any guesses to what he could possibly be?
The guy.
Hope he doesn't, oh, there, I hope he doesn't say on his.
The guy.
Any guesses for him?
What's your guess?
Uh,
A squirrel?
Squirrel.
This guy is a mink.
Oh,
Mink.
Mink.
Rather quite popular back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm sure you all
Mink.
have seen those mink jackets.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
became extremely popular with the ladies especially.
How many
Those big
minks?
puppy mink jackets. Extremely valuable back in the day. So if you look at this little guy, let's say I wanted to make a jacket out of him.
Yeah.
I don't want this, the little white tufts, I don't want his little legs, and I don't want his tail. So let's say I cut it down to get, with a mink this size, I can maybe get a piece about this big, maybe even
Wow.
so let's say I wanted to make a lady's coat. This lady's coat goes just below your knees and above your ankle.
Cool.
How many do you think it would take to make one lady's coat?
Maybe
With a piece this big, sometimes smaller. 100?
Lots. I just know lots.
Lots. So for a man's coat, that goes just below your hips. You're looking at 50 to 60. And for a lady's coat, looking at 130 to 140 to 120, depending on the coat. which, as you can imagine, that's a lot of minks. So you'd be having to trap thousands of these little guys, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're hard to find. They tend to avoid us. So what we did back in the day, that's where the mink farms came from. We started farming these animals because they were in high demand. That's where those mink farms came from. And then right here I have the staple of the fur trade, one of the reasons why it actually began. One of the most popular ones back in the day. Do you have any ideas what he could possibly be?
Beaver.
The beaver. So why do you think the beaver was so popular back in the day? Because if you look at him, you're thinking to yourself, well, he looks okay. He's a nice looking pelt, but the rest, I much prefer a silver fox. So what to do with this little guy back in the day? You see these prickles on top of his fur right here. These are called his guard hairs. What it did was, they take these all out, they shave him right down, and you get this little guy right here. He's extremely soft, the beaver duvet, extremely soft. So what we could do with him, we press him right down, and we make those fancy top hats you all have seen. I'm sure you guys, if you visited the museum, you would have seen those top hats. They became very popular with men back in the day. And what we used to do and how we used to cure it and press it down was we actually get something called mercury. I'm sure you all know what mercury is and how poisonous it actually is. Obviously that's not good for you. You put it in these pelts and press it down. So after a while these hatters are starting to go ooh, a little bit crazy because they're poisoning themselves with this mercury, which obviously that's not that great. And people were wondering, why are these hatters going ooh so crazy? Because they thought it was a repetition of making thousands of hats every year. No, they're poisoning themselves, thus comes to saying they were all mad as hatters.
Oh, Mad Hatters.
Yeah, they were doing some stuff, yeah. And then, we got this guy. Do you have any ideas what kind of bear this guy is? The black bear. So what do you think we could do with a black bear?
Oh, like
A carpet.
So I'm sure up in Europe back in the day, you definitely would not mind having one of these in your nice palace or your house, right? It's rather quite extravagant itself. So what we could do with him, we could make whatever we really wanted out of him. We could use gloves, boots, all the stuff. But typically we would not try to get these guys because once again, what do I have here? A single firing musket. I missed and I got an angry bear in my hand. I don't exactly want to deal with that. So it was also seen as a brother to our indigenous brothers. So typically we would not trap or hunt this guy. But if let's say we had to, in desperate need, we have my musket here. I got one. What I could do with him, we can use all of his fur, and we also use his fat for an interesting reason. We can use his fat for a natural bug repellent.
Oh,
So imagine
bug
you're in that
repellent.
fort over there. It's a little bit bigger, of course, and you're doing all these furs. You can imagine how stinky that would be back in the day, and you don't have no off. You don't have any of that stuff. So the bugs would probably be driving you nuts. So what we could do is we slather him on our bodies and it will work as a natural bug repellent. But the problem is, in about a week, it will start to rot and then bring in even more bugs. So at the time, it's not really worth it to me. I myself would not want to slather myself in bear fat, just have twice as many bugs as I did before. Then I got this big fur right here, the last fur on the table. Do you have any ideas what this fur could possibly be? The bison or the buffalo. We call him the buffalo, depending on where you're from. This was basically the main thing back in the day. Very important to the Métis and the Indigenous people who roam these prairies. Is the reason why is because you can get an abundance of food from him because you can usually weigh around 2,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds. And let's say you're in the prairies, right? You can imagine how difficult it would be.
Nalobat, na-drain at nag-overheat yung camera natin. So di ko natapos yung huli. Pero di bale, maganda naman yung presentation nila. Mga history ng mga Métis. Mga ano yun mga Aboriginal Indians. Yun. So babalikan natin to. Medyo gutom na kami, 1:15 na. Kain muna kami tapos total 3 days naman kami dito. Babalik kami rito.